go. Okay, so first question: did you see the Chilean Star Wars thing I sent you? Yeah, yeah. Face a Krista. That's my shit now. And unfortunately, now I want a Cerveza Cristal.
I I I did. People have been doing memes of it, and so
Mm-hmm.
I did the Obi-Wan. It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground thing, and I said, "It's over, Anakin. I have the Cerveza Cristal," and I found one online, found a picture of it, and put it in his hand,
Uh-huh.
and I posted it, and like it like it was blowing up immediately or whatever. And then people were like, "That's the wrong beer. That's the Cuban version." And I was like, "God
Do you know what? I need you all to calm the fuck down.
Well, yeah, but then it was Chilean people calling me a gringo, and I was like, God damn it, they're right.
There's
Fuck. So I had to go. So I like found the right one and made, and made it. But I was like, yeah,
Luke's
I'm
getting
not
sorry.
I'm not deleting that shit.
I'm sorry.
I have standards, but only up to a point.
I love that you're getting cyberbullied by Chileans over this. I'm
Whatever. I should have been like, you guys wish you were Cubans, but then they could have. But then they were like, look, Pinochet wasn't my fault. But
yeah,
you're
you know,
probably right. So.
yeah. Oh, it's more. It's that Pinochet is definitely more our fault than theirs.
Yeah,
it has to be said.
That just leads into like a whole bunch of questions that I'm definitely, I'm just like, no.
You know what? Like as you were, guys, keep it up.
You know what? You guys were right. Although in my defense, I blame Google image search because I searched for Cerveza Cristal Star Wars and because I just wanted a picture like of one of the pictures or whatever of them holding it and it brought like the fourth image was like this and I was like, oh, I guess it's like an old can or what, an old can version or whatever. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And then people were like, you fool. And I was like,
But you know what?
Anyway, yeah.
Like the real funny thing to do here would be like, I've received a lot of understandable criticism about this, but I'm leaving it up for accountability. That would go hard.
I'm leaving it up because I like my dopamine drip.
Yeah, thank you very much. Because I need my little hits.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's probably perfectly fine that so many of us have tied dopamine and serotonin releases in our brains to a tiny number on screen go up. People think I'm funny.
Yeah, exactly. I need my imaginary friends in my phone to press like. It's absolutely
I got plenty
necessary.
of friends in my phone.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
You started as a friend in my phone, but like yes, I need the people who I don't know. And whose opinions I normally wouldn't care about to be like, oh, bravo, sir, you did it.
Do you know what though? I'm like, God bless them. You get less now of the kind of like Gen Xers showing you the like who's it's like doing a spit take. You get that less, which is good. But you still get people doing the "you've won the internet" thing, and every time I see it, it makes me be like, you know what? Maybe I should just log off forever.
People are going to be cringe no matter what. That is,
it's not my fault.
Nothing we can do.
No.
Yeah, nothing we can do about that. But yeah, somebody said like you on the internet on something, and I was like, oh, okay. Like I can't like.
You can't. I know. And
I remember when people started saying that, and at the time I was like, "Wow, this is like that." That was one of those things that was like immediately used, ironically, and only ironically. Like, no one was like, like no one that like that I know. Like people were definitely like, "Oh, you won the internet. Oh, you broke the internet." Like okay, like
just
cool.
stop. Yeah. Look, it's. Yeah, and I shouldn't be a hater but actually, that's part of the dopamine is it's like people telling me I'm funny and then also getting to judge someone who's being cringe. It's the ultimate rush, frankly, is being able to combine those two pleasures. So, much to ponder. I don't know. I just like hating. I
got to finish chewing my food, otherwise I'm going to talk into the mic and people are going to be like, "Oh God,
a sandwich-eating bastard." Oh, this motherfucker has basic human needs. I've got 3 drinks sitting next to me today.
I got 2.
Yeah.
Man, you were doing the stereotypical girl thing.
Yeah, gotta load up.
Following my wife around with 4 different drinks.
Yeah, exactly.
Each of which is only, partially drank.
Yeah. I'm having tonic and bitters to make me feel like it's the evening, and then I got a herbal tea going after that, and I got water just in case. That's the backup, right? Like just a little peek behind the scenes of my drinks lineup,
Tonic and bitters.
It's good, man. Like
I believe you. Fuck.
Do you like tonic?
Keep talking. No, it's fine. Keep talking. I have to add something to the outline. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, basically, like, it's a good way of fooling my brain into thinking that I'm drinking alcohol when I'm not. Which is like a nice thing to do, So, it's actually, I guess bitters technically are alcohol, but like not the way I'm doing my thing. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, got that going for me. Because it's like I'm enough of an adult to be like, you can't just drink every day of the week, but not enough of an adult to not have my little treats. So I have to like, so my brain is like, I don't know, the sun's going down. Do we get a treat? I'm like, there you go. Dude,
yes.
Like, why don't you pretend that there's alcohol in this? Okay. Fucking brilliant. I love being an adult. It's great. It's just it's different to my 20s when I would just have drunk, but there it is.
Can't do it as much unless you're going to become one of those like championship alcoholics. You're going for the world record of like drinking whatever the fuck.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because like here we drink a lot. Let's just say that. Like the average alcohol consumption, I'd say, is probably a lot higher in the States. It's probably, because it's things like our weed is swag and shit like that. That's part of it. But it's an interesting one because like even more so than the States, there is this kind of expectation where if you're having a good time, you're drinking. That's like a thing. And you will encounter individuals where they're like, well, how do I know I'm having fun if I haven't personally consumed 2 bottles of wine? And you're like, Jesus. Like, and they are among us, right? Like, there's this legendary guy, Adrian Childs. And he, yeah. And he's all like, do you have a favorite spoon, etc. And he's so fucking right about every one of his columns. But he kind of like, I think he wrote a book about this recently, but he's certainly like been talking about it a lot in public, like how he was like, how much he was drinking. And you're just like, Jesus God, like it's fucking enough to kill a horse. And that is not considered in this country to be like necessarily like it's probably, problematic, but we wouldn't say that you're an alcoholic. And I'm like, and so, good for him. He's kind of like slowed his consumption, and that's good. But I think that his slowed consumption is kind of like me if I wasn't careful. I was like, all right.
I don't know. I can still handle alcohol. I just
you're a parent.
I would also prefer to be high. Like if I have the option, which I usually do, I prefer the other because like I don't know. It's just like
tell you what, it's less there's less downside.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm 40. I don't I'm 40. I have a kid. Like I don't, need to be getting like smash drunk or anything. So yeah.
But it's like I think if I definitely had a little person that was going to wake me up every morning, I would probably drink less, God. It's like I'd be sleeping in, so like that's an important part. Like, I'm like the grind never starts. I am asleep, that's me. That is. So I need my 8 hours that's the minimum over here. I'm hunk shoe gang.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I wish. I think the latest I can sleep is 7.
Oof.
Yeah,
Yike.
Yep. Yeah. Good times. Yeah. Okay. Let's. You ready to do this?
I'm ready to do some goofy shit. Yeah. Yeah.
Talking about my sleep patterns is depressing for all involved. All right. 3, 2, 1. Hello, and welcome back to We're Not So Different, a podcast about how we've always been idiots. My name is Luke Waters, and I have a sleep deficiency, I'm sure. And as always, I'm joined by Dr. Eleanor Yannick, who does not seem to have the same sleep deficiency, which, you know what?
Pew,
Good
pew,
for
pew.
her. Yeah, woo! Good for you. Oh, okay. Yeah. So yeah, we are back, and yeah, we're gonna get weird with it today. But before we get there, we have a question from one of our patrons, Gaffsey, who says, in the construction of churches or cathedrals, were any of the materials or objects used considered sacred or special? Similarly, were there any objects or parts of the church that needed to be blessed or purified before they could be properly used?
Well, so there's kind of two parts to this answer, right? Well, the first is that, yeah, all the fucking time, mate, right? So one of the big things that would happen, for example, is sometimes you would reuse older bits of churches or of the same church. So say you've got like an older kind of Romanesque church that is from, I don't know, like the 7th century or something like that. I'm thinking about one that I was in Milan the other day. And it was like originally consecrated in like the 4th century or some shit like that. Bonkers stuff, right? And so, you know, over time, people have wanted to expand the church, make it bigger. You know, sometimes when people get more of an influx of cash, they decide they want it redone in a particularized style. And in that case, they might reuse nice architectural elements of the original one. All the time people will reuse stuff from Romanesque things because there's like, partially because it'll be, you know, sacred because it's part of a consecrated church, but also because it gives you that nice connection to the classical era. And so therefore that's really good. Also, I mean, there's kind of bits that are, you know, somewhere in the middle, right? So you can have in various churches or things like that a lot of icons that will get used. So I encourage you, my friends, to go look up the chapel in Karlstein Castle, where there is just like the walls are essentially made out of gold, precious inlaid stones, and hundreds of pictures of saints, right? And so that's kind of like somewhere of a middle ground where it's like, are icons sacred in and of themselves? No, but they contain sacred imagery, which is kind of somewhere in the middle, and it's a mediation point. There is like a big thing though about if you've got a lot of money at various points, like, you know, you might put some precious or semi-precious stones into the walls and you're just like pow, and that's like a bit of it. Then, you know, like sometimes it depends on how many of relics you got, but yeah, they'll just fucking go, you know. Like if you go to St. Ursula's Church in Cologne, they've got like a bunch of the skulls and stuff of the 11,000 virgin martyrs. And it's just like, here's a whole room of skulls. We have used the bones to decorate it. Now, that is more of a 17th century thing. It was very big style at the time. But you might just line them up. Just like line them up and oftentimes embed them into it. Now, fun fact, every single Catholic altar has a relic in it. So
amazing. The
altar itself will have some form of relic.
I think that's all. Like, I do think that is awesome. Like, they're just like, you know, you got like the local like parish, you know, in Bumblefuck, Georgia, has, you know, like the tooth of Saint Bartholomew or some shit.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's like, it's part of the mass when the priest gets up, when they first come to the altar, what they will do is they will kiss the relic. That's the first thing that will happen every time. So everybody's got something in the altar. Now those are all movable. Those are all portable. But of course, you also have an actual act of consecrating a church. So then the whole thing becomes sacred. And if it stops being sacred, you have to deconsecrate it. Right. So if, for example, you're one of the many churches in England that is no longer used as a church, you have to be deconsecrated, even though that's C of E. So which kind of means, for the reusing of materials, which medieval people do all the fucking time, as I say, if they aren't deconsecrated, they are technically consecrated and therefore somewhat sacred. So yeah, but it's all part of a rich tapestry is the answer. But the point is that at one point in time, all of this will eventually become blessed.
Yeah.
If it isn't already. And there's bones around the joint. Like there's going to be some bones. There is. So. Is
that, this just brings up a question about holy water. Do they just take regular water and bless it and that's what makes it holy? Yeah. Or is there like a whole process?
Yeah. But like basically it's just like the church, your priest is like, bada bing, bada boom, it's holy water.
Yeah. Holy water was a lot cooler in like cartoons and stuff where you like throw it on evil people and they burn or whatever. And then,
Yeah, there's that Castlevania.
In real life, it doesn't do that.
There's that Castlevania where like when you have holy water, you can like throw it at the bad guys. And there was this, I forget which, I think it was like Castlevania for the N64. She's deep cuts, bitches. All right. But there's like this one level that was a hedge maze and you're being pursued by a giant headless gardener with 2 demon hounds. And it had a chainsaw and you couldn't kill it. But the only thing that you could do was get hold of holy water and throw it at it, which would stop it for a little while and keep running. And anyway, like that lives rent free in my head. So there you
go. Yeah. Most of mine are just like the repeated Simpsons references to holy water, like Bart trying to foul it up, or Grandpa is like, my pappy made it as a cheap as a cheap version of holy water. Yeah. Anyway, good job. Gassy, thank you so much for the question. If you would like to ask us questions like this, please do subscribe to our Patreon, patreon.com/WNSDpod. Yeah,
be a lot cooler if you did. All right.
Yeah, it'd be a lot cooler if you did. You get bonus episodes, like the one we recently released on the medieval clit guy. Yeah. So, if you don't know what that means or you want to hear more about it, well, boy, do I have the place for you. Patreon.com/WNSDpod. Yeah. All right. On to the main show. So, we're finally embarking on our newest series that we're affectionately calling Weird Medieval. Because while we do love the Middle Ages, let's just be honest, it's essentially a 1,000-year-long period of strange, freaky, interesting, neat, and definitely weird shit. To give but a couple of examples we will explore in the series, the Chinese invented gunpowder by mistake while trying to find an elixir for immortality. Medieval astrologers in present-day Egypt, Iran, China, Switzerland, and possibly even the ancient Puebloan people in the southwestern U.S. simultaneously recorded observations about the first since confirmed supernova ever witnessed by humans, and it's also likely the brightest stellar event in known history. Then there's the seeming contradictions at the heart of medieval societies. Across the planet, everyday life was, for most people, so localized that they rarely left the friendly confines of the small villages and towns they inhabited. Yet it was still interconnected. It was still so interconnected that a trading route stretched from the Pacific Ocean in present-day China all the way to France and the Atlantic Ocean, uniting 3 continents in the process. Then there's the Americas, which were cut off, but travelers still found their way there from time to time. There's obviously Vinland, the short-lived Norse Viking settlement in modern-day Canada, but there's more. We now know via DNA and genomic evidence that Polynesian peoples sailed their amazing boats from the Pacific Islands all the way across the vast ocean, landed in South America, were welcomed enough to interbreed with the locals, took some foodstuffs like yams, and sailed back home. And that's how sweet potatoes got to Asia when they're all native to the Americas, and before European contact got there. So yeah, that's a 2,300-mile one-way trip from Easter Island to Chile in the Middle Ages. By the way, one of the most insane things ever accomplished by humans, and they did it at least twice, maybe more. And that's what we're exploring in this series, the medieval shit that just makes you go, damn, that's wild. Today, we're starting out with one of my favorites, the time Justinian sent some monks to China along the Silk Road to steal the secrets of silk. Then we talk about one of the most requested topics we've ever had, the Erfurt Latrine Disaster, and we will find out why you can't do more than 10 minutes on it. Lastly, there's the infamous Fourth Crusade, which is, to put it mildly, just really fucking weird. Christians attacking other Christians with the financing of yet more Christians, and then ruling Constantinople for like 60 years. That's gauche even for the medieval Catholic Church. But yeah, before we get there, let's talk about silk and how it was stolen. Eleanor, before we get to the event, you want to tell us how silk is made and enlighten us to the plight of the poor silkworm?
I mean, like, it is really sad because it actually took me years to know that this is how it happens, because everyone is like, oh, moths make silk. And I was like, haha, little guys. You know, they're just that's just a little.
They're like spiders. They're like spinning it out of their butts or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it involves, as you know, you've mentioned the cultivation of silkworms, and so basically they like to eat mulberry leaves, and that's what they eat, right? So you get the eggs hatch out into larvae. You feed them the mulberry leaves. They eat them, and then they grow really, really big. And then this is about a month-long period. They molt several times in this period, and then after their last molt, they start making their cocoons. Okay, so they are unique in their cocoon making because they secrete a liquid that we call sericin, I think it is, so, or maybe sericin. It's sericin. And that hardens on contact with air, right? And that's what makes their cocoon. And so that is like where we get silk fibers from. So what happens is that before they transform all the way into moths, we take their cocoons from them, and what we do is we boil them. We boil the little guys with the silkworms inside. R.I.P. Sorry, guys.
To silkworms.
Yeah, just, there's been massacre after massacre constantly. So then we collect all of the cocoons, and then you do a process that is called reeling. So you take the cocoons, you immerse them in hot water, and that softens the sericin, and then it allows you to then unwind the silk fibers. And then, so after you unwind them, you combine a whole bunch of them together to make a single thread. And once you have all of these silk threads, you twist them up to make a thicker thread. Then you can dye it and weave it and blah, 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 blah. So yeah, basically we're killing a lot of little guys. We're boiling them. Yep.
Yeah. Always fun when people find out how that works.
I just thought that, I don't know. I thought that
No, I didn't know until like 2 years ago. I just because even if I mention it on like Twitter or something, people will be like, "Oh, holy fuck, really?" It's like, because it's like, I mean, I don't know, maybe it's just ignorance, or none of us were appropriately taught, or we're just so removed from production of fabrics or whatever that we just don't have any technical reason to know, but it's just not something that people know. And I think a lot of people assume it's like spiders.
Yeah.
That's, it's kind of what I thought. They shoot it out of the thorax or whatever. And then, that's that. And it's like, no, you got to boil them and pull them out. And
they're never going to be a moth.
Nope. Never going to be a moth. They are going to get caught beforehand. Yeah. So, silk in the classical and early medieval eras, silk was discovered / invented, I guess depending on how you want to say it, by the Chinese sometime around like 2500 BCE, give or take, whatever. Theirs was the highest quality and most sought after in the world, but by the 500s CE, China and Persia held monopolies on silk in Afro-Eurasia. China controlled the east and Persia controlled the west, including Europe, which meant that silk was extremely expensive in Europe because of its distance from both, of course, Persia and China and their control of it. And, the nobles of Constantinople have a taste for the finer things because they just think they are, the greatest thing that ever existed. And yeah, then you get someone like Justinian I who comes along, and he was trying to shore up this problem because apparently it was a big enough problem that the emperor took time out of his day to think about it during the middle of his long reign. And that brings us to the event. So, how to say? Basically, the background of it is this: around 551, two monks, probably Nestorians, traveled to China to preach the gospel good news, and while they were there, saw the process of silk production firsthand, which, like, I don't think was really secret there, and it definitely wasn't a secret everywhere, but apparently people in Europe didn't know anything about how this was done, which is kind of wild to me that, like, even by this point it had been around for like 3,000 years, and everyone east of, like, Kazakhstan was like, I got no clue, man. Magic.
I love it though, because if you asked me to guess without knowing what I know, it would take me a really fucking long time to come around to boiling some caterpillars. I'll say that. I'll say that.
Yeah, and so after finishing their evangelism, those monks returned to Constantinople and decided to present Justinian I with an offer he couldn't refuse. In exchange for some unknown boon, the two monks would travel the Silk Road again, obtain silkworms or extremely young larvae, smuggle them out, work with intermediary allies in Sogdia, which was an Iranian civilization that ruled Samarkand at the time, and transport the silkworms back to the newly imported mulberry bushes in Constantinople. Justinian readily agreed, likely because he loved silk, and his wife, Empress Theodora, she loves silk.
That's right.
There are mosaics of them wearing fine silks, and so sometime between 552 and 561, those monks set out on a 2-year journey. So Eleanor,
I think it should be like a heist movie. I think that I think that you could absolutely do it. It'd be like it's a real you son of a bitch, I'm in kind of a thing where they see this. You get Brad Pitt and George Clooney, you just slide them right in. Okay, they're the monks. I don't know who I'm casting as Justinian yet, but I don't know. Maybe it's gonna be like middle-aged Justinian, isn't it? Because it's the middle of his rule. Hey, we can work it up later. Right? So I like it because it's got all of the kind of like hallmarks. They've seen the riches, they know about the worms, but they also know that it has to be an actual heist, right? And also the like smuggling out larvae in your sleeves is kind of cute. So I like it. It's very Ocean's 11. It's very excellent in my opinion.
Yeah, and like the monks, they just go so they took like the least traveled part of the Silk Road, which runs along like the tops of the Black and Caspian Seas, in order to bypass the Sassanid Persian Empire, because like I don't know if the Sassanids knew these two guys were out, or if they just thought they would get caught. That wasn't really in anything that I found, but like anything that I read, but like they bypassed it, met up with the Central Silk Road route at Tashkent, and were able to steal several larvae or eggs or whatever, and depending on the source, either secreted them out inside hollowed out bamboo walking sticks, which were the gifts from the Chinese, or inside like the flowing robe, flowing parts of their sleeves. There you go.
There,
sleeves. That very rarely used word. Sleeves.
Yeah,
they smuggled them out. Yeah. And just
keeping them alive would be really annoying.
Like that. Yeah. Because it's like a work of espionage, and like most of our sources are like contemporaries of Justinian or Procopius.
This fucking guy.
It's like they just they're just like they stuck about some way, and it's like, well, like, how did they feed them? How did they keep them alive? Because if they get too hot, they'll die.
Well, yeah, okay,
and their silk will be completely useless if they,
And like that's the thing, right? Is they're smuggling them, right? You gotta do this big smuggle of them, and that's all well and good. Go ahead and like smuggle the larvae or what have you. How are you smuggling enough mulberry leaves to keep them going? It's like, are there just like a lot more mulberry trees in Central Asia than I would otherwise think? But I think about the steppes, when I think about Central Asia, just like it's not like really mulberry tree central a lot of the time. So,
I found this article while I was looking into it by this guy named Patrick Hunt. I don't know anything about this guy. He taught at Stanford. Maybe he doesn't teach there anymore. I don't know. But the article was pretty good. But like even in the article, they're like, we don't know, like, because they can be in the cocoon for like a decent amount of time, like months. So like like if they're in the cocoon and you could keep it cool, relatively cool, then as long as they're in the cocoon, they should be fine. But depending on how they did it, like if they had eggs, like that's a bit easier, because then as long as they don't hatch, you don't have to do it. But like there's no agreed upon thing, because it's like one source says the Sogdians, that Iranian civilization, they helped them, and they provided like mulberry bushes there and gave them enough leaves to get to Constantinople. Others say they didn't have to use them until they got to Constantinople, which would probably imply eggs, which I don't know. This historian who's apparently looked into it didn't seem to know either. They just it's fucking wild. Like the logistics of doing this now would still require okay, we got to get like a part, like a chest of ice or whatever, and keep whatever, a climate control thing, and do all this. And it's like and these guys in like the 550s, like we're just two guys just walking along like the Silk Road, like made it all the way back with these eggs or larvae or whatever intact enough that like within a few years the Eastern Roman Empire had 5 silk factories up and going. And their active industrial espionage broke the Sassanid Persian silk monopoly over the West, and also created a lot of pressure on the Chinese silk monopoly in the East, because it obviously put subverted a lot of their customers or whatever. And I mean, silk production was like incredibly lucrative for Byzantines. It was foundational to their economy until 1204, but we'll get to why it stopped in 1204 later. And actually there's still silk production in what was formerly Thrace, near Constantinople, that has been going since this time. So it's like, however they did it, they, whether they walked in and the Chinese were like, yeah, take some eggs, you're not going to get anywhere with them, or like they had to like sneak them out and run all, under cover of darkness or whatever, and then they had to dodge all the Sassanid spies.
I mean, I think
got them back, and it worked. But
I think that absolutely, whether or not the Chinese were like, I definitely care about this, right? Because I think certainly for the Chinese, you'd be like, I have come from Constantinople, I would like some silk eggs. They'd be like, yeah, buddy, I don't know where that is, sure. It is completely possible you know?
Yeah, like that, because there's no reason for you, like the many nations have tried to get like silk off the ground. Like India has a small-ish like production, and there are a couple places around there, but like China has the biggest, best, nicest, most advanced production. They know about the ones in Persia, but Persia still like draws from China to do a lot of this stuff. So they're still making money off of Persia too, as far as I understand. So like, but like, you would have no, why would you think that anybody, that two monks would make it back on the dangerous Silk Road, somehow get past all the Sassanids who would be inspecting them, and like be able to transport these eggs either before they hatch, or if they hatch along the way, have mulberry leaves to fit. Like, it's insane.
Yeah, like,
insane.
I mean, I think it's completely within the realm of possibility, for example, that Chinese people were like, yeah, sure, we'll sell them to you. Good luck. Have fun out there. You know,
have fun with your silk industry, Constantinople. And then like 600 years later, they're like, God damn it.
Yeah, it's,
you know, like
that's where that was. Fuck. You know, and because, you know, this is the thing, is that the Sassanids are pretty serious enemies of the Eastern Roman Empire, right? And they are going to search your shit. And so it's like, I mean, even if we leave aside trying to keep moth larvae going at a constant temperature on the fucking steppes, you know, a place not known for a really a climate with an equilibrium, let's just say that. Right? There's a lot of extremes out there. You know, it's very hot, it's very cold.
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah. And so, like, you know, you're trying to smuggle these guys back and dodge the Sassanids at the same time. No, thank you. Like,
no,
it's just very, very difficult. And then, like, they do it. Right. Yeah. And it would have, this is the thing, it's like whether or not China necessarily cares, because they're like, there is, on the one hand, you were so far away, you know, give it a go. The Sassanids absolutely would care.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like, they do not want you breaking their monopoly closer to home. Yeah.
Justinian had gone after like some different, like he'd been trying to get like silkworms from other places, and the Sassanids were always putting the kibosh on it. And then they figured out, and then the Byzantines just figured out that the Sogdians were like trying to put their thumb in the eye of the Persian, you know, the Sassanids, and they were like, oh, okay, like, you know, and so they kind of like they literally did a workaround, because like you were not getting this like through Persia, so you're either going to have to like sail all the way around Africa or whatever and go to India or something like that or whatever, or you're going to have to go north and find some friends up there, because that's the most dangerous part of the Silk Road. The fact that the two guys made it back alive doing that, like, is pretty wild altogether, you know, traveling that route by themselves, but like making it back with the stuff intact. Insane. Utterly insane. One of the craziest things I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's just absolutely bonkers, and I love it, and I demand a movie. So. Yes,
or an HBO miniseries. I'll take a nice, you know, an HBO miniseries, something like that. You know, we just get like a, you know, it doesn't need to be, you know, 3 seasons. You know, just 5 or 6 episodes. You can do it. You can have like a fighting episode, like a one where they make it back, you know, as the Sassanids are like chasing them. You know,
oh
they
yeah,
got, like, banjo music going.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite stories in history. It's just like, because it's so, like, it shows that like these people were intelligent enough to do the logistics for something like this. It like,
I could never, frankly.
Insane. Yeah. Like, yeah, like it, like, and like the, not just the logistics, the ability to do it and everything like that. And they just like, yeah, cool, let's do it. You know, yeah, let's take some fucking some silk and make our own industry. Oh yeah, that's gonna happen. And then like, you know, Justinian got it, and yeah, he sure showed us. Yeah, he and Theodora, they got her asses
once again. Yeah, Procopius is mad about it.
Go check out our the recent medieval women episode we did about Theodora and Theodolinda. Really good stuff. Both very interesting.
Cool checks.
Yeah. So we're gonna move from that to, hey, it's the Erfurt Latrine Disaster, which before we get into it, let me just say, is incredibly weird and incredibly funny. But
I can't make more than a tight 10 out of this.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, yeah, I think well, There's Your Problem did like 7 minutes on it. Like they have like engineers on that podcast,
Yeah, exactly.
It's
I can do the political background a little bit more.
Go for it. Yeah, let's go.
Okay, so because the whole thing happens because Henry the Sixth, he's not yet the Holy Roman Emperor, but he will be, is like attempting to mediate in a dispute between the Landgrave of Thuringia, one of the Ludwigs, and the Archbishop of Mainz. Okay, and these guys hadn't got along for quite some time. There's a lot of bitching back and forth, and so Henry is like, okay, like we've got to get these guys together, and we're going to do some mediation, because he's supposed to be going up to Poland in order to, I don't know, presumably try to subjugate some Slavs, right? So he's like, well, while I'm here, we'll all get together, and I'm calling a diet. And more specifically, it's not just a diet. He called a Hoftag, and that's kind of like an irregular assembly. And you call it a lot of time, like when you're King of the Romans or Holy Roman Emperor, and it's not like as big as a full-on diet. It's like you can come or not, right? Yeah. So basically, he's staying in Erfurt already. He's like, well, come on in, and then we're gonna bring in all these other guys in order to mediate this shit, right? So that we're gonna start some negotiations. So that's what everybody was doing in Erfurt in the first place. So they all show up. Like 25th of July, the year of our Lord 1184, and they are in like the Hoftag, like and they are in like the fanciest building in the city, right? So they got an assembly hall to get together in, and it was not well enough reinforced to have that many guys. Erfurt isn't like one of the biggest, it's not like a place where you would always have this many people going in and out, right? So it just had like never like come together. So they're in the deanery. The floor breaks and everybody falls through the floor into the cellar where the latrine is. And which is very, very common. If you've got like a long drop privy or whatever, basically you're like, you crap into like an area, and then every once in a while, some benighted soul goes and cleans it out, right?
Yeah.
So they all break through. They land in the sewage that's in there, and we think about 60 of them fucking died.
Yeah.
A lot of guys. And like named guys. This is the thing. So
yeah. Oh, and let me just I'm just gonna give a few of these names here. I'm just gonna read a couple of them off from Wikipedia because they're so good. Gosmar III of Ziegenheim. Ziegenheim. Yeah. I'm sorry. I apologize.
You got it. No,
again.
you got it.
Yeah. Count Friedrich I of Abenberg. Burgrave Friedrich I of Kirchenberg. Burgmeister Brewer of Wartschit.
Yeah.
And Burgrave Burchard of Wartbarg. All apparently perished. God rest their souls.
Rip.
King Henry, future Holy Roman Emperor Henry, was, according to a few sources, on part of a stone alcove of the floor. He just happened to be sitting there, or that was his like dais or whatever. And the floor fell out from under him and from all of them, and he only survived because they pulled him out using ladders.
And they're like, "All right, quick, get the king!"
Yeah. But one thing we should be clear about is the people who died, like they literally drowned in shit.
Yeah,
like
well,
like they either drowned in it or suffocated, or apparently some of them were killed when the ceiling collapsed.
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of shit fell on them. Like, I mean, actual beams, not shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's a terrible thing. And then hilariously, like also the Ludwig, the Landgrave of Thuringia, he also survived.
Yeah.
So you're like, all right, okay. So it's like all these guys. It's like this is fully innocent bystanders. They're just catching strays, right?
Yeah. Like these people who are just there. And I mean, like it's like Eleanor said, it's like a problem that like they didn't anticipate, but like it's just one of those things where like this one part of this building has never held 60 people at once.
Now, hey, it was more than 60. That's how many people died.
Oh yeah. I'm sorry. Yeah, it hadn't held like well over 100 or 200 people at once. But, and it wasn't reinforced for that. And when you have too much weight on something that is not reinforced to hold that weight, it's going to fall apart. And that's what it did. And it collapsed. And 60 nobles died. Apparently, there's nothing about like anybody else died, but like apparently it was nobles, like It's like how the French nobility just kind of casually got wiped out every so often in the 100 Years' War, and they were like, well, fine, we'll have to make some more little assholes to kill the next time. It's like, there you go.
It's true.
The struts couldn't hold it. They fell. I also would like to say, I realized that all medieval people didn't stink or whatever, and the entire world didn't stink, but man, just sitting on a floor in the middle of summer, 2 stories above like a lake of shit.
It's interesting.
That's
and it's interesting too,
I don't
right?
care what you do. Absolutely like, how dare you?
That's
what is,
probably
like, if I was the Holy
grosser than,
Roman
like,
Emperor, I would be like, what the, like, you expect me to walk in there? Like, no, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's like, I mean, it's interesting because like this is more of a rich people problem than a poor people problem.
Oh, yeah.
So it's like the fancier you are, the more likely you are to be sitting over a lake of shit, right? Because like poor people are going to, like decent individuals have a hole in the ground that they'll muck out occasionally, and it'll be outside, So,
not in,
like not under the fucking deanery.
Yeah,
dude.
I guess you might occasionally have to like, take a shit in a hole inside or something like that, but you throw it out. I don't know.
Like, I mean, they have like chamber pots and stuff where if it's like, if it's the middle of the night in January, you're probably not going to go outside.
You're like you're wading out into like 10-degree weather. You're like, God damn, little ice age. God
no,
damn
like
it.
absolutely not. Right. So it's funny because it's like, this is a rich people problem, and interesting because like, so you're saying that you have enough people in there that you have a lake of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And you're lazy enough that you haven't mucked it out recently.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a certain amount of people, your floor will collapse. So it's just quite interesting. It's like there's a lot of moving parts to this one. Right?
I like to imagine they actually had mucked it out, but these people just showed up the day before and they ate so much like hearty German cuisine that they were just like
busting,
shitting up a storm the day before. The peasants are like, we're giving it another day. I'm not doing this 2 days. I'm not doing this
2 days in a row. No.
2 times in 3 days or whatever. And then all the nobles died, and they're just like, the peasants are just like slinking off, like, ooh, that sucks to be you, but the fields, planting, sowing, reaping.
Hilariously, that's what Henry did.
Yeah,
Henry's
exactly.
just like, I gotta go.
Which is what I would have done too.
Yeah.
What
are you supposed to do?
I mean, like you hug a grieving widow and you're like, sorry about Burgmeister Brewer of Vartschiet. Yeah. Sorry, gotta go. Yeah. I would also just like to say that in German, this is called Erfurter Latrine Disaster.
Yeah.
So there you go.
There you go.
That's all.
Like,
I know.
I mean,
Yep.
guys, that's what it is. I don't have more to give you.
We really would if we did, because a bunch of nobles dying.
I mean, we do like that.
Is funny, but
it's on brand.
I think everybody's heard a story or seen something where, like, somebody did their own deck in the backyard or something like that, and they were like, oh, we're gonna have a few people over, and you put 10 people on a deck that can only hold like 100 pounds or something, 200 pounds. It's like, well, somebody's gonna go to the hospital with a broken leg.
Mm-hmm.
So that is the Erfurt Latrine Disaster. Yep, in under 10 minutes. Good job, everyone. We did it. Lastly, for today, weird shit. It's the Fourth Crusade. We've talked about it before, but like, if we're talking about weird medieval shit, like, one of the most darkly cynical events in history, especially in the history of Europe and the Catholic Church. And I mean, that is saying a whole fucking lot, because like, and I mean, to be clear, we're going to talk about it. The Pope did not endorse this and was in fact very furious about it. But at the same time, like,
it shows you the limitations of the church.
Yes.
That's the thing that's interesting about it, right? Because it's like
it shows the limitations, and but it also shows that, like, you know, because if you look at it from the outside, this is just, you know, Christians who serve the Pope going and and doing this, and the Pope's like, no, please stop, and they're like, yeah, whatever. They just go and do it, and they just knock out Constantinople for 60 years. There have been like 20 something sieges of Constantinople, and like 18 since the Theodosian walls were built, and none of them have succeeded. But these guys showed up, and because like the people of Constantinople thought they were coming to save them or whatever, and they let them inside, and they were like, yep, it's ours for 60 years, motherfuckers. And you're just like, what the fuck? So Eleanor, we talked about it before, but let's just do the background here. Where were the what was happening in the Holy Land just before this, and what was this crusade specifically for?
Jerusalem. It's always fucking Jerusalem, right? So basically,
Saladin had taken it a few years.
Yeah,
wasn't it a few years before? I think it was like 1180s.
Saladin had kind of like taken it over. So Saladin is kind of ascendant in the 1170s to like the 1180s. So the Ayyubid Sultanate is here. And here you go. So like a bunch of Egyptians are owning it and controlling it. Makes a bit more sense than a lot of Normans or whatever, but there you go. So basically the Pope is like, well, I don't like this, right? And he's like, I call a crusade. And, once again, a bunch of French people got hyped. And they're like, well, excellent, we're going to do this. Okay, so here's the thing about crusades.
They love to get their nobles killed. Sorry.
They do. I mean, it's really fun for them. So, I mean, but the thing is, by this time, by the time you've hit the Fourth Crusade, really from the Second Crusade onward, people don't walk to Jerusalem because it's very hard.
Yeah.
And it takes a long time. So what they usually do is they take boats. Now, at the same time, Venice is really in the ascendancy, and Venice has its own empire all kind of like around the Eastern Mediterranean. So, it controls bits of what we would consider to be Croatia. It owns, Grecian islands, all sorts of things like this, right? And now the French kind of go to the Venetians and they say, guys, can we have some ships, please? Right? And the Venetians are like, okay, this is going to be awesome because we're going to make a bunch of money just ferrying these rich dudes over. No worries. But the trouble is, this is going to take basically all of our ships and what is ordinarily going to be used for shipping, right? So they say, yeah, sure. How many guys do you think you're going to have? And the French are like, probably about 30,000 or so. And the Venetians are like, yeah, okay, that's definitely going to be all of them, right? So here we go. They all kind of go to Venice. Now, here's the thing. They don't all go to Venice. So, like, a lot of people, for example, decide to depart. If they're from the lowlands, they're like, well, I'll get on a ship here. Thank you. A lot of these guys, once again, are French. So they just go to fucking Marseille, right? Others go to Genoa because, again, it's closer to them, right? So all said and done, basically, by the time the Crusaders show up in Venice, there are only about 12,000 of them. They're about like 20,000 light. And now the Doge of Venice is like, yeah, I don't care. We had a contract, because he's a business guy, right?
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't give a fuck. Like, he's not here about, like, he does not care about, freeing Jerusalem or whatever.
Yeah, they're about to invent, well, in Europe anyway, they're about to invent double entry bookkeeping. They got bigger problems to fry than 12,000 nerds.
Yeah, exactly. And so they're like, well, that's cool, but we literally do not have the money. So I don't know what you want us to do about it. And so the first thing that happens on the way is that the Doge is like, okay, well, that's cool. We can wipe this kind of debt clean if on the way you go over and stop in Zadar, which we would consider to be Constantinople at this point in time, because they are supposed to be like a holding Venice, but they had kind of like broken away, and he's like, well, why don't you go put that down, right? And then that would help, right? So they go over to Zadar and they attack it, which the Pope is like, guys, what the fuck are you doing, right? Like you can't call a crusade on Zadar, right? Like that's not chill. And like basically they had been aligned with Hungary at this point, and they're all Catholic, right? They're all Catholic, and the innocent is like, what are you doing? You can't do that, right? But they've done it anyway, right? So the Pope is really angry, and he sends this letter to the Crusades, and he's like, by the way, you are now excommunicated, right? You need to fucking like go now to Jerusalem if you want to be back in the fold. I need you to get on a fucking boat and go to Jerusalem. No more of this dilly-dallying, right? So basically, like, they're supposed to move on their way. But the Byzantines are, I got one more task for you, right?
Okay. Oh, just one more thing.
They're like, why don't you attack Constantinople too? And like basically all of the Crusaders are at a fucking loss. Like they don't have any money. Like they don't have a boat without the stuff. So they kind of like go to Constantinople. Constantinople and Venice are massive rivals in the Eastern Mediterranean, as I'm sure you can understand. Like if Venice is holding a lot of what we would consider to be Greek islands, they have a lot of spheres of influence that are clashing, right? There's also a massive brouhaha going on in Constantinople because there had been a palace coup, which is, one of the cooler kinds of coups. Yeah. So basically, the Emperor Alexios Angelos had been deposed by his brother Isaac II Angelos. And Isaac II had been like, I'm just going to blind you and send you on your way, because basically Alexios is sucked as a ruler. He had basically like left everything up to the Venetians, which is like, I'll just have the scorpion do all of my defense, says the frog, which is a very interesting thing to do. And he like gave away a lot of money and powerful positions to his homies who were doing nothing. So everyone is mad at him. Thing about it is Isaac II also sucks. And so because he did a big palace coup against his brother, he spends a bunch of money just trying to shore up all the nobles and be like, please don't be mad at me. Don't be mad at me, bro. I swear, don't be mad at me. Right. So basically, Alexios Angelos goes to the Venetians and is like, but guys, if you come to Constantinople and put me back on the throne, then I will pay you off. And the Crusaders are basically wrapped into this because they don't have a lot of choices, but also they're just kind of dicks. So they then end up attacking Constantinople. And this is an interesting one because it's like, so basically they kind of get let in because they're with a former emperor, and some people are like, I don't know, right? And so there's a lot of wiggle room in Constantinople at the time, right? So basically they're like, they get told by the emperor, oh, this is going to be a cakewalk. Like no one is going to be mad at you at all whatsoever. So they go over there and they put siege to it. So like basically they start sieging it in 1203. They eventually do get in, and like, that's cool or whatever, but then they do not put the emperor back on the throne. So that's interesting, right? That is not actually kind of like how it goes down. So basically, like, they instead have, it's like the son now at this point in time, and then they're like, I don't even really want to put you back on the throne, because it's like, well, I'm in here now, homie, right? So and basically the son, who's Alexios IV, like couldn't pay them off what he said he would. It's like, this is what all of the story is. The entire story is like, the Crusaders couldn't pay the Venetians what they said. The Byzantine emperors, theoretical emperors, couldn't pay them what they said. And so like, that means that like, you've got all of these pissed off Crusaders and Venetians who are like, all right, well, I'll just go melt down these icons. And like the Byzantines are like, what are you fucking doing now, right? And like, and then they're like, okay, well, we are just going to like put our own guy on the throne because I don't even know about like this Alexios guy. He can't even pay his debts, right? So we're not even having this, right? They just sack Constantinople absolutely completely, and it's bad, homie. Like, they kill a lot of people. It's alleged that there is rather a lot of raping of like nuns. They like go into the Hagia Sophia and they smash things up. Now, granted, some of this is probably heightened because they don't like these guys, but they behave abysmally. And you're also not supposed to be fucking sacking Constantinople. Like, oh my God. And Innocent the Third is like, you guys.
You fucks. I just wanted you to go do a little bit of light colonialism on the Turks. Why are you not attacking the Turks? They're always lusting for Vienna, even though that's not really a thing yet.
I know that they're lusting for Vienna, and like it's basically this is what really solidifies the schism in the church as well, because up until this point the popes kept pretending that like they're like any day now, any day. They're going to come around. They're going to think that I'm important. And everyone in Constantinople is like, honest to God, bro, why would I think you are important? Like, I don't understand. And this does not help, right? So, and like, this is really the nail in the coffin for any kind of idea that that Christendom is ever going to be made whole again, right? And, you know, eventually some of the army go to the Holy Land. They go to Acre or Acre. I don't know how I'm supposed to like Acre probably. And like they guess what? They do not retake Venice, but it's only like a few of them kind of get over there. And so it's like it's a rot, you know, like it doesn't really come to anything. The people who get there are usually the ones who like came from Apulia or something like that. Right. And you do basically get this 60-year period then when the Venetians are like running Constantinople and they split up the Eastern Roman Empire. It's like, which is called the partition of the Byzantine Empire. This does not last because the Eastern Roman Empire doesn't like this.
Of all the things that have ever been created into history, you know, this was definitely one of the ones that was like destined to fail. There's no way on a long enough timeline, like, you know, over like 20, 30, 40 years, like that this is going to succeed because like
no one wants you here, bro.
Constantinople is like a proud city. They riot all the time. Like the Nika riots that we talked about with Justinian and Theodora, like they did that shit all the time to their own emperor. Like that was a common thing. So like, you know, how long are they going to allow this to happen? How long are you going to be able to keep this afloat? Like, as like, you know, where you're basically running like, you know, like a protection racket while like thumbing your nose at the people of Constantinople. Like it's not gonna last.
And they start the one good thing that comes out of it is the word Francocratia, which is like the Greek word for them controlling a Greek land, which is, and that's fun. We like that. But yeah, like these guys suck. It's I don't like them. Nobody likes them, and you shouldn't attack Constantinople actually. So
it's kind of funny because like Pope Innocent, who had called the crusade in the first place, was like, no, what the fuck? And like Simon de Montfort, who's in hell according to Dante, you know, and is like reviled as a historical villain from the Middle Ages, was like, what the fuck? Like, you idiots. Like he like that guy was like, no, what the fuck is wrong with you? Why would you do like, you know, it's just he like they were some of the ones that went to Hungary and Acre and, you know, bypassed this whole thing. And like there's a whole dispute about like how many of the soldiers actually participated in the sack and like how the leadership did, like, you know, but like the point is that like a large enough contingent of these people and some of the named Crusader leadership who like took the vows directly to the Pope, or like took their men and went there, and there were, you know, 10,000 of them or 15,000 or whatever. And, you know, I mean, yeah, there's this quote from Spiros Virionis, who's a American Greek historian, about the sack of Constantinople. He said, "The Latin soldiery subjected the greatest city in Europe to an indescribable sack. For 3 days they murdered, raped, looted, and destroyed on a scale which even the ancient Vandals and Goths would have found unbelievable. Constantinople had become a veritable museum of ancient and Byzantine art, an emporium of such incredible wealth that the Latins were astounded at the riches they found. Though the Venetians had an appreciation for the art which they discovered, they were themselves semi-Byzantines, and saved much of it, the French and others destroyed indiscriminately, halting to refresh themselves with wine, violations of nuns, and murder of Orthodox clerics. The Crusaders vented their hatred for Greeks most spectacularly in the destruction of the greatest church in Christendom. They smashed the silver iconostasis, the icons of the holy books of the Hagia Sophia, and seated upon the patriarchal throne a whore who sang coarse songs as they drank wine from the church's holy vessels. The estrangement of East and West, which had preceded over the centuries, culminated in the horrible massacre that accompanied the conquest of Constantinople. The Greeks were convinced that even the Turks, had they taken the city, would not have been as cruel as the Latin Christians. The defeat of Byzantium, already in a state of decline, accelerated political degeneration so that the Byzantines eventually became prey to the Turks. The Fourth Crusade and the crusading movement generally thus resulted ultimately in the victory of Islam, a result which was, of course, the exact opposite of its original intention. Also, just to go back and note here, this sack was much, much worse than the sack that Mehmed the Conqueror did in 1453. You know, not saying that people weren't violated or didn't die then, but it wasn't this bad according to, you know, both Christian and Muslim historians. So, yeah.
It's very funny also to do this, in terms of popes to piss off too, because Innocent III is like the most lawyerly pope, and Innocent III was such a like, I am the pope and I'm consolidating all of my power guy. So it is so stupid to go up again, because he is going to damn you.
Oh yeah,
you will.
Innocent. Yeah, he's just like, all of you excommunicated, like 10,000 people, like, you know, just 10,000 souls excommunicated overnight. But I mean, like,
to be fair, they deserved it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Like, I mean, I'm not, you know, again, as I said, he was the one that called the thing in the first place. But like at the same time, like, he literally was like, no, you guys are fucking awful. What the fuck is wrong with you? Like why? Even he thought it was weird. Why would you do this?
Yeah, it's like it's such an incredibly stupid thing to do, just for so many reasons. Like, but yeah, it's sometimes lads go a little wild when they're on tour. Yeah. Let's just say that. Let's say that. Yeah.
Yeah. This is a definitive example of dudes not rocking. Yeah. Also, the Venetians got like incredibly wealthy off of this. Just like the, I believe they were like golden horse-drawn chariot statues that adorned like the gate, the main gate of Constantinople, were like taken and never returned. They were still in Venice until after Constantinople fell. Like, you know, it's Yep. So the Fourth Crusade, kind of a little bit of a downer to end on that one. But, you know, next time when we come back, we're going to be talking about more weird medieval stuff. I think, you know, probably do the supernovae of the Middle Ages, because there were 3 of them that have since been confirmed, and they all happened within like 150 years. And that's really weird, because there have only been like 5 or 6 confirmed supernovae ever. And, you know, they got to see 3 of them in the Middle Ages, and we're going to talk about more stuff like that. Maybe how weird it is that the Catholic Church had dominion over all of Europe for like 1,000 years, which is just really weird. It is weird because, you know, when you look at every other world religion, they kind of do a lot of splintering. You know, like Islam, you know, had a break just after Muhammad died, and yet the Catholic Church, like, had a hold on Europe anywhere from like 300 to, you know, like definitely by 800 they like had like a firm hold over Europe until, you know, the Reformation.
Yeah.
Like, that's really fucking weird. Yeah. Cool. So yeah, we'll do that next time. But Eleanor, what's going on with you right now?
Oh yeah, so much, homies. You know, I'd be writing over at the blog going-medieval.com. You know, the book is out in paperback. That's the Once in Future Sex, buy it early, buy it often. Check out my socials at Going Medieval on most of them because I've been doing a lot of other people's shows, so I'll generally let you know when that shows up as well. So yeah, good idea to keep on top of my socials. Sometimes I'll just be like, you know, showing you pictures of my cats, but sometimes it will be about work stuff. I promise.
Yeah, you can find me, you know, usual stuff. Luke is Amazing wherever. You can find my old show, People's History of the Old Republic, wherever you're listening to this right now. But yeah, that's going to do it for us. And thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.